They said he participated in an erection. And I have to, an insurrection, and I have to say I got up at 5 this morning to do Casey Hunt's show, and I'm exhausted.
I get up at 3:15 every morning, and I'm able to function. I never make a mistake like that. What's on his mind exactly? So today is Super Tuesday. People are voting, and, well, we already know what's going to happen, right? It's weird to see cable news make such a big deal and try to build all this drama in, because, well, they've already invested money in all the graphics and in all of the live remotes and in all the countdown 2024 or democracy 2024 or choice 20, whatever they are calling it. But ultimately, what's going to happen today is that Donald Trump is going to do a clean sweep of all of the states that are voting in the Republican primary, and Joe Biden will win the states that are voting in the Democrat primary. And so what's the point, right? And that's kind of where Donald Trump is right now. He showed up on Fox and Friends via telephone, and he basically said, what is Nikki Haley doing here? What exactly is her path? What's her strategy? Because there's literally no way she can get this nomination. So what is she in it for? We might be able to answer that question in a little bit, but here's Donald Trump first.
Eric, can you bring that one to the stage?
Yeah, you betcha. Hang on. Let's do that one more time.
So look, there's no path for Nikki. I wish Nikki the best, but she stood up and many, many times said, I'd never run against our president. He was a great president. I would never run. And then she ran. So, those things you don't like to see. You like to see people that are truthful.
Yeah. So in that one clip right there, Donald Trump encapsulates everything that is a problem for Nikki Haley. For those of you who at any given time over the last 14 years of Nikki Haley's public high-profile career, since she won the governorship in South Carolina in 2010 through today, if each of you at some point has said, oh, yeah, I like Nikki Haley, and then several years later said, wait, what happened to Nikki Haley? I'm thinking every single individual, even Mr. Haley probably, is thinking that himself. Every single person at some point says, this Nikki Haley person is great. And then, wait a minute, this Nikki Haley is not the same Nikki Haley. And that's the problem. Let's forget about her time as governor of South Carolina. Let's just look at her time since 2016. I remember being in New Hampshire covering the primary up there, and she was all in for Marco Rubio. And when Donald Trump looked like he was going to win the nomination, she was, oh, hell no, we can't have Trump. She was this close to being never Trump, frankly. Then when Trump wins, she gladly takes the job as the ambassador to the United Nations. And she gave a lot of good speeches. And then when 2024 is rolling up, as Donald Trump just pointed out, she said, yeah, if Donald Trump's running, I'm not going to run. And then Donald Trump preempts everybody by announcing that he's running. And then next thing you know, a few months later, here comes Nikki Haley running for president too. Wait, didn't you just say, wait, what? And then, of course, to participate in the debate, she signed the pledge to the Republican National Committee saying, whoever the nominee is, I promise to support them. And then, of course, just this weekend, she reneged on that and said, I'm not beholden to that anymore just because I've decided that I am. So that's Nikki Haley in presidential politics just in the last several years. Ron DeSantis had some great ads showing how she says one thing and then does another thing in a very short span. And the worst thing about it is if you call her on it, she lies and says, oh, I never said that. I never did that. Just own it, right? So right there, Donald Trump sort of encapsulates what a lot of voters are concerned about with Nikki Haley, especially at a time where we've got a candidate who is pretty brazenly sort of unfiltered, right? Say what you will about Donald Trump, but there's no pretense there. In fact, he could use a filter now and again. But with Nikki Haley, everything seems tested and focus grouped and market evaluated. And, oh, is this where people are? Okay, then I'll take this path now or that path. And that's why I think she hasn't resonated this election. In fact, to prove the point, they had a location here. This is in Texas at a diner. on Fox and Friends, where they asked the voters there, well, what's it looking like this Super Tuesday?
But I did a quick straw poll. Ainsley, Steve, Brian, Lawrence. Let's just take the temperature as we start the morning here in Texas. If you are for Donald Trump today, Super Tuesday, let me hear you. All right. Anybody here for Nikki Haley? Okay. But I did a
Ooh. Ooh. That's painful. I love it's silent, and then you get one voice in the back going, ooh. That's just rough. That's very rough. So what exactly are we doing today on Super Tuesday? Well, it's going to be interesting, and I hope some of the networks do this. If they don't, maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Some of the states are closed primaries where only Republicans can vote for the Republican nominee. That's a quaint notion, isn't it? Hey, we're the Republican Party, and we got to figure out who our nominee is. Let's just have Republicans make that decision. But then you've got other states where if you can register day of or something, or in the last week, and then you can vote in the Republican Party. You've got some states where it doesn't matter. You can be a registered Democrat and you say, yeah, I want to vote for the Republicans this time. And I'd love to see how much better Nikki Haley does in those states versus the states where it's only Republicans. And I know people will say, well, sure, she appeals to Democrats. That's important because if we're going to win the presidency, we need to get Democrats on our side. But those Democrats are not going to vote for Nikki Haley if she's the nominee. We know that. The exit polling shows it. They're doing it because they want to send a message to Donald Trump, because that's what motivates every vote right now in this country, how you feel about Donald Trump. But that's what's really happening today, right? So why is Nikki Haley still in it? Well, last night with Martha McCallum, the question came up.
So, there's former President Donald Trump has come after you for not pledging to support the eventual nominee, which, of course, you had to pledge to support the eventual nominee to get the RNC, permit to go on these early debate stages. Now, what do you say about that? You answered the question yesterday, so I'll ask you again. Will you support the eventual nominee for the Republican Party?
Well, I think you should ask him if he would support the eventual nominee if it was me. I mean, nobody's asked him that, and I think that's the case. Look, the convention's not till July. There's a lot of time. I mean, I have said very clearly how much I think Joe Biden is a problem, how I think he's dangerous for our country, and how I think we need to go in a different direction. But I don't think Joe Biden or Donald Trump should be president. That's why I'm running. And I don't think a lot of other people think the same thing. Millions of people will vote tomorrow, and they're going to have their voices heard. This is not an anti-Trump movement. This is a pro-American movement. These are people who are tired of the wasteful spending, and Donald Trump's not talking about the fact that he put us $8 trillion in debt in 4 years. These are people who want to go and see a secure border, and they don't like the fact that Trump stopped Congress from trying to fix the bill and pass a strong border bill. This is about national security, where we should be preventing war, and Trump said he would stand with Putin as he invaded our allies. It's a totally different set of policies that we're talking about, that we want to see America go in a strong direction. And so I think people will have the chance to vote tomorrow, and it's going to be a great day.
Did you follow what happened there? I talk all the time about how Biden's a problem and he shouldn't be president. Neither should Donald Trump. And this isn't anti-Trump. This is pro-America. Now let me spend the next minute ripping Trump apart. And she didn't spend much time ripping Biden apart, did she? Why? See, if she spent her campaign right now attacking Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump, then I think a lot of Republican voters would be pretty forgiving about that, because she'd be a weapon in the arsenal for the Republican Party to make their case that it's time for a change no matter who the nominee is. But she doesn't do that. She's just another weapon against Donald Trump, which can only serve Joe Biden in the general election. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they're already recording a whole lot of the speeches and appearances that she gives so that they can play it in November, because, yeah, there are some moderates or uncommitted voters who like her. They like her because they like the idea of her. And so Joe Biden will say, hey, look, at Nikki Haley doesn't like Donald Trump, so you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump either. That's what she's serving right now. And let's face it, she's not going to get the nomination. She's not going to get enough delegates to even make a showing. She has to win 5 states. These are the rules for the RNC convention, she has to win 5 states to even have standing as a potential nominee at the convention. She's not going to win 5 states. And most importantly, she's not going to have any delegates of any note committed to her in Milwaukee for the convention. See, she's not just trying to draw to an inside straight. She's trying to draw to an inside royal flush. Actually, she's not even trying to draw to a royal flush. She's trying to get the royal flush on her first 5 cards out of the deck. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. What she's hoping somehow is that Donald Trump gets convicted of a felony, and then in Milwaukee, someone makes a proposal for a change to the rules of the convention that the Republicans won't nominate someone who's been convicted of a felony. And then she's hoping that she gets enough votes at that convention to win that proposal. Then she's hoping that if they do remove Donald Trump as the nominee, that she'll have enough support at that convention to make her the nominee. Now, I don't think any of those things will happen, but even if all the things right up until that last thing happens, the last thing's not going to happen. And maybe that is what she's trying to do. You see, she's funded by Democrats, and she's funded by Never Trumpers, led by Bill Kristol, who, by the way, I think is also a Democrat now. She's funded by some pretty big interests who don't like Donald Trump and don't want Donald Trump to be president. They don't want Donald Trump to be president so much that they're willing to have another 4 years of Joe Biden as president. That's who's supporting this campaign. Campaigns don't do anything without money. And she's making money, and most of it is coming from those interests. Not interests who want to boost up the Republican Party and make sure the Republican Party is strong to defeat Joe Biden. No, interests who want to hurt Donald Trump. If that's who's funding her, then you must extrapolate from that fact that that's what her intention is. Everyone's trying to figure out what's in it for Nikki Haley. What's her path? How does she get victory? It doesn't make any sense. Well, no. You see, it doesn't make any sense if you're shooting this through the lens of how does this help Nikki Haley? That's secondary. It all makes sense if you shoot it through the lens of what will hurt Donald Trump. Then it all makes sense. Not only is it making Donald Trump spend more money in the primaries, it's also keeping him from being able to access campaign funds for the general election. Because as long as the primary is going on, the election commission rules are is that you can't touch any of the money for the general election until the primary is resolved. It's also keeping Donald Trump as the presumptive nominee to start coordinating with the Republican National Committee. And by the way, it's also keeping Donald Trump focused on Nikki Haley instead of on Joe Biden. And it also serves the purpose of feeding this narrative that the Republican Party is divided, when in fact it's not. Not nearly to the extent it was in 2016 when there were multiple candidates and Donald Trump was winning primaries with 33 or 35% of the vote. He's winning with 55 and 60% of the vote. And he hasn't lost one except DC, which, let's face it, doesn't count. In fact, when Nikki Haley did win in DC, the Trump campaign used it as an example of why she's a problem. The statement? Nikki Haley is crowned queen of the swamp. You think he's upset he didn't win in D.C.? Tonight's results in Washington, D.C. reaffirm the object of President Trump's campaign. He will drain the swamp and put America first. Yeah, every state in the country has rejected Nikki Haley, the Republicans at least. The only ones who embraced her were the ones in D.C. who were the part of the problem. And by the way, to put it in perspective, there are, I think, 700,000 people who live in D.C. Do you know how many voted in the Republican primary this weekend? 2,000. Of those 2,000, 1,200 voted for Nikki Haley and a little over 600 voted for Donald Trump. And, oh, by the way, if there is a criminal trial of Donald Trump in D.C., that will be your jury pool. Good luck finding a Republican in the jury pool based on those numbers. But if you do, it's probably a Republican who doesn't like Donald Trump. And while we're at it, Nikki Haley had one other appearance on CNN last night with Jake Tapper. And I mean, there wasn't really anything noteworthy about what she said, but Jake Tapper said something curious.
Explanation was not they didn't like Donald Trump. They said he participated in an insurrection. And I have to, an insurrection, and I have to say, I got up at 5 this morning to do Casey Hunt's show, and I'm exhausted.
Oh, cry me a river. I get up at 3:15 every morning, and I'm able to function. I never make a mistake like that. What's on his mind exactly? And by the way, just for accuracy's sake, Donald Trump did not participate in an insurrection. We've been through this before. No one's been charged with insurrection. Although that other thing, I'm pretty sure he has participated in now and again. I mean, he is a father of 5 beautiful children. Usually, the one thing precedes that thing.